Everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So is symmetrical broadband something that consumers, how important is it to them? Is it something that they need or something that they want? Is it marketing that drives that? We'll talk about that in just a second. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So I saw this story, and I've been saying that consumers, what's driving a lot of consumers right now is not what they need, but it's what they want, and what they want is based on a lot of advertising marketing. So, does everybody need gigabit speeds? I don't think so. And do they need gigabit both ways? I certainly don't think so. Now, there are going to be some folks that are doing certain things, certainly businesses, but other folks that are doing certain things where maybe that's more important. But I think a lot of this is being driven by marketing. But of course, perception is reality to a lot of consumers. So if they perceive that gigabit broadband is needed for them to be able to do everything they want to do, and if they perceive that I need it both ways, that's really important, then that's going to be reflected in what they're wanting to buy and how much they're willing to pay for it, those kinds of things. So I thought I'd cover this article here. It says a third of broadband switchers want symmetrical speeds. So this was based on a study that a company did here. So it says a debate's been raging between cable and fiber players over whether symmetrical speeds are a must-have or merely a marketing campaign. But the question of whether consumers need symmetrical speeds is very different from asking whether they want such capabilities. Fresh data from Recon Analytics indicates that for a significant portion of consumers, the answer to the latter is a resounding yes. So about a third say, yeah, we want that, and are willing to pay more for it. So Charter CEO Tom Rutledge has notably argued the position that the answer to the first question, do customers need symmetrical speeds, is no, and that all the hype around such capabilities is just marketing buzz. And usage data appears to back him up. OpenVault's most recent report showed that while uplink usage is growing, it remains a fraction of the downstream consumption. And that's really the case, right? Because most of us are consuming broadband data and doing less pushing out of the broadband data. I'm pushing something out now because I'm doing streaming, but this is much more rare for people to do, number one, and then do it as often. So I'll spend 10, 15 minutes doing this today, but I'll spend a lot more time maybe streaming something on Netflix later on today. And that's the case for most consumers. So on the upstream, it's much less needed. But just like anything, people are going to want the best, right? So if they see two different companies offering broadband, and one is saying, hey, you can get gigabit speeds up and down, and the other one's a provider that's saying, hey, we'll give you 500 megabits per second down and 100 megabits per second up. Well, who's a consumer going to want to choose? It's like, well, this is faster. This is what I want. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing here, but it's certainly not needed for most consumers. Most can get by, if they as they've done tests, and like Cable Labs, for example, who has certainly a dog in this fight. That's the company that's basically created the DOCSIS standard and has been upgrading that. They have looked at the kinds of usage that people are doing, and they did tests where they're running tests where they simulated, several people at home doing Zoom calls, and then also had some background broadband usage going on, like people might be watching a stream or something like that. And it took very little upstream data in order to be able to do that. I think it might have been 50 megabits per second. That was more than enough to do those kinds of things. So again, it's not so much that it's really needed, but it's what people want, because again, people perceive the symmetrical speeds as better. So it says here, AT&T meanwhile has been one of the most vocal proponents of symmetrical speeds because they can offer this a lot more easily than Charter can, particularly in the multi-gig realm. Shortly after the rollout of its 2 gig and 5 gig plans, AT&T VP of Broadband Technology Management, Josh Goodell, noted uplink usage had jumped 3 times among multi-gig subscribers. And you're going to see that, obviously, as you offer people, as you give them more bandwidth, they're going to make use of that, whereas before, maybe when they were doing something, it might have been throttled a little bit, or if they're watching something, Netflix will adjust based on speeds, and if you give it more speeds, they're going to eat more. So you need to be prepared, if you're a broadband operator, to be thinking about the bandwidth on your network. If you start giving a bunch of people gigabit up and down, you've got the bandwidth on your network that suddenly people are going to be using more. It's not necessarily that they're going to be noticing that much of a difference, they're just going to be using more. And the same as far as your connection out to the internet, you're going to have more people aggregating more bandwidth or more traffic through your bandwidth out to the internet. Recon Analytics founder Roger Entner told Fierce that a recent survey it conducted found more than a third of likely internet switchers consider symmetrical speed important when they plan their decision, and they're willing to pay more for it. So again, I think that's asking people, again, it's putting a choice in front of them. Hey, if you could have this or this, would you be more interested in getting this symmetrical speed? Would you be willing to pay more for it? So they're not necessarily making the decision at this point, but they're saying, yeah, I think I would. When it comes down to it, though, a lot of people look at their pocketbook, especially lately with inflation and the price of gas and food and everything else. They might be looking at, well, maybe I wouldn't pay more for it. Depends on when they did this survey. But also in the real world, when somebody's actually ready to open their wallet, would they be willing to pay, let's say, $10, $15 more a month to get symmetrical speeds if they can make a case that, well, you know what, do I really need that? Is that going to make much of a difference in my life? AT&T is heavily, or to Rutledge's point, it appears marketing does play a role in how much consumers value symmetrical speed. So he's admitting here it's a lot of its marketing. AT&T has heavily advertised its symmetrical capabilities, an effort which was reflected in the survey. So again, people that are seeing the survey, they're hearing about AT&T, yeah, symmetrical sounds great. Just like anything that you're going to buy, like I say, everybody wants the best. The question is, are they willing to pay for the best? Some people have the money to pay for the best. So if you're looking at two different products and one's a brand name and one's a not, you got your generic brand, and they seem like they're equal quality, you still may go for the brand name because that seems like the best, even though you're paying a little bit more for it. And some people will buy the generic. Despite Rutledge's insistence that symmetrical speeds are not necessary, the operator, and this is Charter, is nonetheless preparing to offer them. At an investor conference in May, Charter CEO Jessica Fisher said its rollout of high splits will enable it to offer multi-gig symmetrical speeds in the near future. And that would be using, I think, they're talking about the high splits, so they'd be using, I think, extended spectrum DOCSIS, that portion of DOCSIS 4.0, which is increasing the amount of spectrum that can be used on the upstream. And fellow cable player Comcast is similarly pushing to offer multi-gig symmetrical at scale using mid-split, CEO Dave Watson said in May. And I believe Comcast, yeah, they're going for, I believe, full duplex. That's another aspect of DOCSIS 4.0. So these are, DOCSIS 4.0, that's the standard for cable. That's the latest standard for cable right now. Most cable operators like Charter and Comcast are on DOCSIS 3.1 and moving toward DOCSIS 4.0. Most other cable operators are on DOCSIS 3.1 to DOCSIS 3.0. A lot are on 3.0 still. And they're trying to decide, do we just go all fiber or do we stick with DOCSIS 3.1 for a while? But some of these larger MSOs, they've got so much invested in their HFC plant that they are not looking at wholesale fiber changes right now. They are looking at squeezing every little bit of performance they can get out of their HFC network. And the way that they're doing that is through the technologies available through DOCSIS 4.0. So that would involve, like for full duplex, for example, going to a node plus zero kind of architecture. So rather than having, on their HFC plant, having, fiber going out to some amplifiers and then having a string of amplifiers on the coax portion of the plant, and then to the end user, going all the way, fiber nodes all the way, pretty much to the edge, and then going final leg being coaxed to the end user. So they're looking at putting more and more fiber in the network to be able to do that, doing things like full duplex coherent optics on the fiber part of the plant to be able to get these kinds of speeds. That is their strategy for fending off the competition from fiber operators right now, as well as 5G. So they've got 5G operators like T-Mobile and Verizon and AT&T that are coming in there that are offering, pretty decent speeds over wireless 5G mid-band spectrum, whether that be C-band spectrum or 2.5 gigahertz or CBRS. They're offering these mid-band spectrums that can propagate really well and get speeds well over 100 megabits per second. So if you're a cable operator, one way you can fend off is by offering, again, if you're competing against a 5G operator, saying, hey, we can offer gigabit speeds. Maybe it's not full duplex. Maybe it's gigabit, maybe it's a gig by 500 or something like that. But they can market against the 5G operators and saying, see, this is faster than you get with 5G. The 5G operators are going to say, hey, here's fast broadband speeds, plenty for your needs, and we won't lock you into a contract. We'll send you the equipment, and all self-install, very easy to set up. So they're all competing on these different kind of playing fields right now. It's unclear how long these updates or even upgrades to DOCSIS 4.0 will be able to fend off advances from fiber. Many fiber players are using 10 gig capable XGS-PON technology, with the likes of AT&T already trialing 25 gig tech. Last month, an AT&T exec told Fierce mainstream 25G rollouts will likely ramp up in 2024. So XGS-PON is definitely a big buzzword, definitely popular right now. A lot of operators are not necessarily rolling it out, but when they're putting in their equipment and the cards in their OLTs, they're making sure that they're XGS-PON capable so that they can do that. Now, whether they're going to start providing 25 gig PON to end users out there, I think that's a ways off. But they do have that capability. Again, the thing with fiber is it's much more future-proof than DOCSIS. DOCSIS, again, they're trying to wring out every little bit that they can, and it's not easy to do. And this is one reason why, with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that the federal government is really trying to put a thumb on the scale as much as possible for fiber, if they can. If it's a reasonable technology to do. They're making allowances for places where that would be really high cost to do, but they're trying to get people to roll out fiber because you see this progression of XGS PON, then 25 gig PON, on up to 50 gigs. So you can do this without having to rip out the fiber. You might have to change out some lasers or change out those kinds of things to bump up those speeds. Using different technologies over that same piece of glass. So fiber is definitely has an advantage from that case, but there's still a lot of life left for cable operators. And again, these big MSOs like Charter, Comcast, they are going to be doing what they can to get the highest speeds out of what they have. And then you've got other providers. You've got folks like Mediacom and WOW that are looking at doing pretty big fiber rollouts in areas because they're smaller, a little bit more nimble, and they're looking at doing that. And eventually they'll be overbuilding more of their plant, those kinds of things. So we're going to see this over time from all the cable operators. In the cable world, most large operators are currently running DOCSIS 3.1. And that certainly is, yes, as most large operators, which enables downstream speeds of up to 10 gigs and upstream speeds of 1 to 2 gigs. A shift to DOCSIS 4.0 will bump the upstream number to 10 gigs, but the timeline for deployment of that technology is unclear. So, yeah, so they could do, they're not going to be, Cable Labs came out with what they call their 10G initiative, which was supposed to be like, that G was supposed to be gigs, like you could do 10 gig symmetrical. But probably not likely. 6 gig symmetrical maybe is on the top end, or 10 by 6. I don't know how they're going to do that. But, that, again, that's plenty fast for, a number of years into the future. But, it does, as we get, let's say we get more cable operators like a Comcast or Time Warner or whoever, Charter, in a particular territory, offering, let's say they start offering 6 by 6, well then does AT&T come out and say, hey, we're going to do 10 by 10, or we're going to do 25 gig, and you really need that, So the consumer says, well, why would I get 6 when I can get 25 from AT&T? So again, perception is reality. That is the big challenge, I think, for cable operators if they are competing head to head with a fiber operator. Is even if the consumer doesn't necessarily need it, they want it because they've been told they want it because of marketing. And me as a marketing person, I understand that very well. I try not to do that. I try, as we, here at Zcorn, we're always trying to make sure that we're actually meeting the needs that people have and not necessarily selling things they don't have. We want to make sure, it's consultative kind of things. We want to make sure that we're working with people on, their actual needs and not selling them something that they're not going to need. So, but I understand when you're in this dog-eat-dog fight on the consumer side, that's what they're doing, I guess, is competing wherever they can. So anyway, if you do need some services, we'd love to talk to you. Again, it's a consultative process. So give us a call or reach out to us on the website or by email. We can provide all kinds of services. If you're just now thinking about providing broadband in your area, maybe you're a electric membership co-op or a municipality, or you're already in the business, we can help you from start to finish. We can help you with feasibility studies and engineering and design all the way through. Once you're in the business, how do you run it? Who's going to do your tech support? We can do that. How do you provision the end user devices? We can do that. If you need email, we can provide email for the subscribers. We've got diagnostics. We've got carrier grade NAT, DDoS solutions to protect you against distributed denial of service attacks, all kinds of stuff. So again, reach out to us if you need any help with that. Thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up on the video if you would. I appreciate that if you found this interesting. And if you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button. Click the little bell and you'll be notified when I am live. And I'm live every day, Tuesdays at 3 o'clock for Tech Tuesday, and that's every business day, or at some other point of the day like today. When I have a topic, I'll be live and you'll see that I'm live when I start. Thanks a lot, and I will see you next time. I'll see you actually tomorrow for Broadband Deployment News. Take care. Bye-bye.